Hey, it's Michael Vandenham, and I'm going to do a little bit of a tech video talking about the live valve system that Fox makes. I was lucky enough to just get not one, but two new bikes, a giant Anthem and this giant Rain right here, and both of them equipped with live valve, something that I haven't used at all before, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to look at the live valve system on two totally different suspension platforms and maybe talk about how it operates differently on those platforms. So what is live valve? Basically, it's a brain on your suspension that opens and closes your suspension hundreds of times per second. So what that means is instead of having a lockout lever on your bike or having to reach down and flick the suspension into the firm or open setting, live valve does all of that work for you. The idea behind the system is that you're always in the perfect suspension setting. You don't have to do anything. I don't know about you, but there's a lot of times when I'm at the top of the trail and I either forget to open my suspension up after having it closed for the entire climb, or I'm lazy and I just leave it in the middle setting and deal with that. With live valve, that should be a thing of the past. It's going to be closed, it's going to be open, depending on what the terrain does. So how that actually works is there's sensors on the front of the bike and the back of the bike. And every time you hit a bump or have some sort of impact, the suspension goes from closed to open. And it does that really, really quickly. So if you're climbing and you hit a bump on the trail, the fork's going to open up, it'll let you go through some travel, and then it'll go back into that firm setting. Same thing with the back. Pretty cool. When you set your bike up with live valve, you actually set it up pretty much exactly like you would if you were just running a regular suspension platform. Still adjust the air, still adjust rebound, still adjust compression. What live valve does again is just flip everything from the closed to the open setting. You can actually tune the live valve a little bit as well. So stock, it comes with 5 different settings, everything from an open setting right up to a closed or firm setting. So far, I've basically been riding somewhere in the middle, and I think that's what most people will probably do. You'll find something that you like and stick with it. But with that, you're still getting all of the benefit of your suspension opening, closing, way faster than you could do that. Something new with the live valve 1.5, which both of my bikes have, is you can actually go into the app and adjust those suspension tunes even more. Say you like that middle climb setting or the middle sport setting, but you want it to take a little bit more of a bump to open up the live valve. You can actually go into the app and you can adjust that. And you can do that for all of the settings, which is pretty cool. Again, I think for me, I'll probably find something that I like and just stick with it. But if you're really into adjusting your suspension, that's just another tool you have at your disposal. All right, so that's enough talking about live valve. I'm actually really curious to compare and contrast riding the Enduro bike, my Rain, back to back with the XC bike, and seeing how the suspension is different across those two platforms. Now, to be clear, the live valve actually functions pretty much the same across everything, but what makes the big difference is the suspension platform itself. So if you're riding an XC bike with a suspension platform that you could normally lock out or have a really stiff setting, live valve is going to let that happen. If you're riding an Enduro bike, it's not like it's going to be totally locked out, and that's a good thing. It's actually just going to be a firmer suspension setup to help you get up hills a little bit more. But with the bigger bike, it's going to feel a lot more like the firm setting on regular suspension as opposed to a full-on lockout. All right, so I had the chance to both ride my Enduro bike, the Giant Rain, and my XC bike, the Giant Anthem, back to back. And there's a couple things I noticed right away with live valve. Is one, I noticed it was on almost immediately when I was riding the XC bike. Just because of the way that suspension platform works, you notice it stiffening up and it feels super, super snappy when you're accelerating. But at the same time, when I was hitting bumps, especially on a climb, I could tell right away that the front fork was opening up. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. I had that lockout for climbing, but I wasn't getting bucked around at all. And that was pretty cool. The interesting thing though is on the Enduro bike, I actually didn't notice it right away. There was a couple times I was asking, is it even on? But then I would switch the bike over to the open setting and you switch it back and you go, okay, it doesn't really feel like it's on, but this bike is climbing great and it's not bobbing a lot. And that's kind of the beauty of it, is you don't really have to pay attention. The bike still feels like your bike should, except that it's just more efficient when you're climbing. And I think that's kind of my final takeaways on live valve is, can you ride your bike without it? Absolutely. But this just takes that little bit of thought process out. You're never wondering if you should be locked out or not. And it does a way, way better job than you or I could ever do at locking and unlocking your bike or flipping it from open to closed, because it does it so quickly and is able to do that in places when we wouldn't be able to as riders. So yeah, that's my takeaway is, it's a really cool system and it just takes that thought process right out of it and makes your bike suspension feel good pretty much all the time. So yeah, that's that. Thanks for joining me as I talk about live valve today. Feel free to check out some of my other videos.